morning and welcome to the Athletic NBA Daily. Coming up, some bad news for Damian Lillard and the Bucks. Myself and Andrew Schlecht play a game of Moments of the Night, and Anthony Slater comes on the show to talk about Jimmy Butler's return to Miami. The Warriors got smoked. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
Crazy night as usual. Basketball, always great. We unfortunately got some pretty bad news out the gate for tonight, though, and that was that Damian Lillard has been sustained basically deep vein thrombosis. I want to get that right because it's essentially a blood clot that was found in his calf, and he's out indefinitely for it. He missed 3 games with a calf strain, and so the Bucks basically found out that this is something more serious. Obviously, all the best wishes to Dame, and obviously the Bucks situation is really tough. But from Sam Amick and Eric Name of The Athletic, they both reported that there is some optimism that Dame is going to come back this season. We'll see what happens there. We've seen, obviously, numerous cases this season of the similar thing. Victor Wembanyama got ruled out this season. Asar Thompson had to deal with it throughout the year and came back second half of the season. Christian Koloko, another example, who missed all of last season, but now came back and is playing for the Lakers. So it's obviously one of those common things, but it's unfortunate for the Bucks because, man, they've had some really, really unlucky injuries over the last couple of seasons between Dame and Giannis last year, Giannis the year before with the Heat run to the finals. It's unfortunate from the Bucks side of things.
Yeah, and I don't know how many more years the Bucks can have disappointing losses like this in the playoffs. I mean, if you can't play in round one, like they'll be against Indiana most likely.
Sure. Yeah.
And like that's a tough matchup. The Pacers are a good team. They're playing really good basketball right now, and you need Damian Lillard to win games. You just absolutely do. So it's a bummer, but it's good that he's taking care of himself.
Absolutely.
Hopefully he can come back. And just best wishes to Dame and his family.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Chris Haynes did report that, him and the Bucks are taking this seriously and that he's in, kind of good spirits through this whole situation. So definitely hope everything is okay for Dame. Okay. So crazy night in the NBA. A lot of stuff happened, as it usually does in the association. We wanted to do a little moments draft before I talked to Anthony Slater about the Warriors getting smoked to the Heat. Okay. Do you want to start this draft, or do you want me to do the honors? How do you feel?
I would love to go first.
Okay, take the first overall pick. Tell me the number one moment from last night.
So I will take, and this is not necessarily a moment from last night, but just a moment for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who scored 20 points or more in this game. In fact, against the Kings in a win that kind of got tight in the third quarter, but the Thunder pulled away. Shai had another big game. He had 32 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He did have 5 turnovers, all of them in the first quarter, by the way. It was very strange.
Yeah.
I think he had only had 4 other games or 5 other games where he had 5 or more turnovers, and he did it all in the first quarter, but didn't turn the ball over after that. So good for him. But he now holds a Thunder record that he passed Kevin Durant for. Now has 65 straight 20-plus point games, which is wild. Only Michael Jordan, who has 69 of those games, Oscar Robertson has 76, and Wilt Chamberlain has 80, but he did twice.
Of course, it's Wilt. Of course, it's a Wilt record.
It had to be Wilt. It had to be Wilt. Wilt is one of those. I mean, none of it seems real. You go look at some of the stats. I was actually showing one of my sons some of Wilt Chamberlain's stats earlier today, and I was like,
doesn't even make sense.
It'll never happen again. None of this stuff will ever happen again.
Yeah, that one graphic where he had a game where it was like 50-50 and 30. It was like this. That's never going to happen. I'm sorry, man.
Doesn't even make sense.
Does not exist. Yeah.
But Shai has now scored 20 points in 65 straight games. The Thunder have won 60 games, which has only happened one other time in franchise history. It's just a run-of-the-mill win for the Thunder on the road. This is actually 11 consecutive road wins, which is a Thunder record as well for them. But there's a little bit of history sprinkled in there for the Thunder and for Shai. So not a huge night as far as like they won by 16 in Sacramento. There's not a lot to take away from the game, but there are some cool stats.
Yeah, and look, you could kind of pull apart that 60-12 record and talk about how they're the youngest team in the NBA to get to 60 wins, all that type of stuff. That's definitely there. Okay, this is my second pick. I'm going to go a little bit fun here. This is an interesting one. It's unlikely that you were watching the Utah Jazz play the Memphis Grizzlies. Smoked them.
I was hoping you wouldn't take this for your first draft, but go ahead.
It's worthy of it, Andrew. Okay.
I was close to taking it number one, by the way.
KJ Martin took a corner three in the game, and it was an air ball. And you know what? Air balls happen to the best of us. I've shot them. I'm sure, Andrew, you've shot them once or twice in your life, right?
Without a doubt.
But this was so short of the net that it was as if, I don't even know. What was he even aiming for at this point?
I think he was playing a different game. I think he was playing like restricted area ball or something, where you're just trying to shoot it into the restricted area. The funniest part, and I'm sure you're about to mention this, is that he yells short.
Right.
In a way that you yell it when you know that it's like
just
hit the rim or something or whatever.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I know it's just going to be short. I didn't have enough legs in that one. Well, yeah, he definitely didn't have enough legs. That's a tough one. I'm sorry. That's kind of like the Shaq in a fool moment here, but I had to take it. It's just so good. It's so good.
It's so good. You have to go watch it. It will make your day. Shout out to KJ Martin, who I don't like. This sounds like we're dogging on him. I kind of like KJ Martin.
I think decent basketball player.
I think he can play. He can play.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go for my next one. I'm going to stay with this Thunder Kings game because Keegan Murray was absolutely on fire in this one. He was 9 of 13 from three. He was 5 of 6 in the third quarter. And one, it's just really fun to see somebody just get hot like that.
Yeah.
And then two, for it to be Keegan Murray makes it even better because of like the call that the announcer does to the crowd for Keegan Murray.
The best. Yeah.
And by like the fifth one in the third quarter, the crowd was just like, you could feel like I almost like went to go check my TV to see if it was vibrating because the crowd was just going berserk. Because I think they cut it down to like 8 or something like that. And it really felt like the Kings were about to go on a run, and Keegan Murray had sparked this like big time run in the third quarter. And, hearing the Keegan Murray it's just so fun. And
it's one of the best things. It's one of the best fan interaction things in the NBA. 100%.
Without a doubt. Every team should pick a guy to do this with.
I agree. Who would
Every
it be?
Team
who would it be for the
one.
Thunder? Would it be?
Well, Royce Young, who works for the Thunder, already put his submission for Aaron Wiggins. Which you could, that'd be okay.
That works. I like it. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to do it to the same tune. That's the thing. It's like I think that he's a little bit stuck in a box.
Yeah,
I honestly would want it to be Lou Dort because it would just be Lou and then just Dort,
right?
Just one like big Dort, But
because it has to be the full name too. It can't just be Lou because that's happened before. They do the Lou, right? They do for other players.
The Lou,
right?
Yes,
yeah.
But I think every team should pick one. Anyways,
I like it. Okay, that's a good pick. All right, I'm gonna go with the Knicks, who beat the Mavericks tonight. A little bit of history there. Karl Anthony Towns and Josh Hart become the first Knicks teammates to both have triple doubles. Josh Hart, triple double machine, by the way, most triple doubles in a season in Knicks history. He just passed Clyde Frazier. So cool Knicks moment. Again, a pretty inconsequential win for the Knicks, who are very, very firmly locked into the third seed in the East, but very, very cool historic moment for them. That's a good one. What about yours? Next one. Talk to me.
Next one. Kel'El Ware had this moment. And there weren't a lot of like crazy moments in the game. Yeah. You had the Jimmy Butler coming up behind Kevin Love, rubbing his chest, rubbing his nipples before the game. That just felt kind of weird, awkward. Like, what's happening here? Definitely not one of my favorite moments. But this Kel'El Ware play where he gets blocked, but he also recovers and then is able to kind of flip the ball back in. It was one of like the cooler plays, especially from a rookie this season. And to me, it's just I just want to highlight again, like I've talked about it on Slam and Jam before, but this Kel'El Ware pick was really good for
he was awesome.
the Miami Heat. I mean, the guy's 7'1". He's a monster. He's good on the boards. He can block shots. He's a good rim runner, and he's super skilled, and he takes threes. Like, I mean, you're looking at this draft class, and you're looking up, and you're like, man, this draft class is not that good, blah, blah, blah. But like, there are some guys that are playing really well, and Kel'El Ware is one of them. And he's one of the guys that, if we look back in 3 years and Kel'El Ware, we're saying like, oh, he should have gone top 5. Like, I will not be shocked. Because
you could maybe really good. You could maybe do a redraft right now, and there would be a conversation for him to be top 5.
Yeah. My guys at Ball had him number 1.
There you go. Wow, over Jared McCain. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, my final pick here is Ty Jerome. Which I think Ty Jerome needs to be the most improved player. I don't know exactly what the eligibility requirements are for him in the 65 game rule, because he only plays 20 minutes a night. He played 20 minutes tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. The Cavs get a win without Donovan Mitchell, who doesn't play. And Ty Jerome dropped 25 points in 21 minutes. I just thought he is awesome. He has this swagger to him, this confidence. Those are the type of players we should be rewarding for most improved, because that's the essence of the award. A guy who was basically not in the NBA or on the fringes of the NBA to a guy who, how many teams would Ty Jerome start for today? Think about it, folks. Maybe that's something fans should think about. How many teams Ty Jerome would start about today?
There's a handful.
There's
a handful. Yeah. Floaters for days.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, look, that was your moments of the night. Andrew, appreciate you playing this little game with me. Look, coming up, we got Anthony Slater talking about the Miami Heat Jimmy Butler reunion game. It was a lot of theatrics. The game, not so theatrical. Jimmy Butler returned to Miami for the first time since being traded from the Heat, but the Steph Curry-less Warriors get absolutely smacked by a motivated Heat team. To help me break this down and talk about the Warriors, we're joined by Anthony Slater, who covers the team for us here at The Athletic. Slater, not the game Jimmy or the Warriors probably wanted out of this one, but just generally, how was the atmosphere, the vibes coming into the game, the tribute video, all that type of stuff? How was the atmosphere in Miami?
Pretty dull, to be honest. Steve Kerr said it post game, and I thought he was right. I mean, this is kind of Miami's crowd's vibe, which is, he put it in a very complimentary way of like, such a great city, so much to do. Right. Nobody's ever too amped up. And even talking to some of the Warriors people, pre and post game, how much it didn't compare to Kevin Durant going back to Oklahoma City.
Right.
And obviously, that one was deeper and just there was more nuance to that, but also that's a ferocious, I guess road atmosphere typically. Mm-hmm. And this isn't. Jimmy Butler got some tepid boos, some cheers and some acknowledgement.
Half-hearted boos. It felt like they were half-hearted, right?
They were half-hearted. And the other thing is, and I think the Heat kind of did this on purpose, but they did it pregame.
Right.
Which, and this is a notoriously late arriving crowd, right? They're just kind of lounging in from the beach or whatever. So sure, I mean, you could tell and Kerr made this point also, like the Heat were very motivated. Eric Spoelstra had his team very motivated. Right. Andrew Wiggins was flying around. Bam Adebayo was super aggressive offensively. Davion Mitchell played really well. You could tell that it meant a lot to the players, the coaches, the front office, the organization, but it didn't feel like it did again when, like, in Oklahoma City, that was like an entire city descending upon the Warriors and Kevin Durant. It was not like that on Butler. Yeah,
you're right. And I think, the tribute video, I kind of mentioned this in our group chat too, but it was just weird to go from tribute video to boos and then to cheers and boos. It was just mixed feelings all around, right?
To be honest, I was at the De'Aaron Fox return game a couple weeks ago in Sacramento. That was like fiercer.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. Sacramento's a great crowd, right?
Yes, agreed. Exactly.
Yeah.
But, he doesn't have the history or it certainly didn't have. I mean, it wasn't a great divorce with De'Aaron
but
Fox
not that
Kings,
level. Yeah.
But it wasn't Butler's. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's so in a sense, like the scene and the moment in the event was a little bit underwhelming tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the game itself was pretty underwhelming too, especially from the Warriors' perspective. I mean, there were some really great moments from the Heat, who probably played one of their most inspired basketball games this season. But from the Warriors' perspective, it was bad all around. I mean, they couldn't hit a shot whatsoever in their starting group. And, obviously without Steph, that's definitely a part of it. But how much are you concerned about the lack of creation outside of Steph, given this team's aspirations going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a potential Achilles heel for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They missed, you mentioned it, 14 straight threes by the starters to start the game. I think they were like 9 of 38 from three. Meanwhile, the Heat were 17 of 24 from three. But some of it is just like bad luck, right? Moses Moody went 0-9 from three. He's been shooting it really well for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But even Jimmy Butler, who without Steph is supposed to kind of be the offensive creator, like he's scored 11 points, had a couple assists. Of course, there was a lot of potential assists that were missed, but he hasn't been overwhelming offensively. He's had a couple nights and a couple quarters, like the quarter that Steph got hurt in against the Raptors, right? Jimmy kind of, took him home down the stretch, and he's had moments. But I think I will say, like, if we're going to be telling the postmortem on this team in the playoffs or play in, theoretically, but probably in a playoff series, I think it is going to be they just couldn't score enough against long, active defenses, at the rim and from three and from a creation standpoint. And they're still, despite being, the burden is not quite as tough on Steph Curry, I still think it's going to be too much against the best defenses, especially because, Jimmy Butler doesn't have quite the offensive pop, I don't believe, that he used to have. He's an all-around great player that's changed their team. And then the other thing, and maybe we're going to get to it, Kuminga, like the Kuminga reintegration.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
As smooth.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's been not smooth, to like you mentioned, but what is it that's making it not smooth from him coming back from injury?
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about wanting to have more spacing lineups, getting Quentin Post out there more often, and like Jonathan Kuminga is not, your more traditional like catch and shoot spacer. When he was playing really well in the middle portion of the season before he sprained his ankle, he was being featured more. It's kind of in some ways in like the Jimmy Butler role. He comes back to a team that Jimmy Butler's on, and we'll see how that they fit long term on the court together. I'm not sure it's gone that great through 7-8 games, whatever it's been, because Jimmy Butler's kind of stagnant. They're isolating Jimmy Butler a lot more, and they're saying, Kerr had some stat the other day that Jimmy Butler's the best isolation player in the league according to their metrics. And so they're going to feature that, and typically around your more ball dominant isolation guys, you want space shooters who don't need isolations themselves. And I think Kuminga's trying to learn. He's had a couple games where his cutting's been very good, and he does stuff that they really need, right? Yeah. Powerful, downhill, slashing. But he also kind of wants to get to his mid-ranger at times, and he wants to be featured, and defenses sag off him, which naturally clutters the lane. So there's a little of that. And then the bigger picture, 2 steps back, is just like, I don't know that there's always been a full level of belief from Steve Kerr and the coaching staff about Kuminga. And I just think his playing time fluctuation sometimes leads to him not being as fully engaged and as you'd want him to be. But some of it, in my opinion, is understandable because it just feels like he's just so commonly yanked around, and he just like doesn't know what the role is, what everything is, designed to be for him now and into the future.
And man, you mentioned the future. That's what makes this very interesting for Jonathan Kuminga. It's an important summer for him. And like, how much is this next month and a half, whatever it is, of basketball for Kuminga going to determine what the future looks like with him and the Warriors?
I think a lot, because if they decide to pay him, as Joe Lacob, who was very much part of the drafting process of Kuminga and has remained a staunch believer of Kuminga, he told me on the record after the Butler trade that the full, belief and intention of him and their front office is to pay Kuminga, long term. And, Kuminga's obviously seeking the max, which his max would start in the 37, 38 range. But, even if it's not that mid 20s towards 30,
right.
If they were to give him that type of contract this summer while already committing big money to Butler, Curry, Draymond, you're talking about a near second apron team already.
Yep.
Committing to that long term. And to me, you only do something like that. You only go that deep in the tax if it's like, this is a title contending core and
right.
you know it. So if they go and, they knock on the door of the finals this year and really kind of make a run, and Kuminga's a heavy part of it, then I can see his future being here and them paying big money for that type of team. But if they flame out and if he's not that big of a factor, and if that core four that I mentioned looks like it doesn't fit, I can't imagine them paying that type of money to those four type of players for a team that flamed out in the first round like 4-1 or something like that. And then Kuminga's future's in question, but also do they make another tweak with the Butler Draymond part of the core, because they are kind of committed to this, like, one last ride, two last rides, whatever you want to call it, with this real aging threesome that they have. But also, like, Joe Lacob still believes in Jonathan Kuminga long term and the talent. I don't think they want to have a completely empty cupboard where they just let him walk right for nothing.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation. And going back to the premise of your question, I think what happens over the next month and a half is very relevant.
Right. Yeah. And look, the playoff race is going to be very relevant to how they finish here, because the West playoff race is all about matchups, right? Whoever you get matched up against in the first round might kind of determine whether you're going to make that deep playoff run or whether you're going to be a first round out. And the Clippers, the Wolves, they're knocking on the door for that final playoff spot. Losing this game now kind of makes it a little bit unclear if they're going to be securing that 6th seed. What kind of urgency is there for them to just keep trying to climb this standings? And I guess the other side note to this question is, who do you think they want to face? Who's that team they've got their eyes on?
So I'll start with the urgency. I mean, it's high.
Yeah.
They have, the plan's been around, like 5 years?
Right.
It's probably impacted them negatively more than anyone. The first year lost to the Lakers in the 7-8 plan, and then lost to that really young Grizzlies team that came into Chase Center and knocked them out of the playoffs when they were the 8 seed. They were the first team to experience being a top 8 seed and not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that was a negative experience. And then obviously last year they got pummeled in the 9-10 play-in. Like they've seen their season end in that so much that, like, you could tell how much they want to avoid that, number one, just because you don't want your season to be done. But also, if you avoid the play-in, and I think this is very important considering the age of their team and how they believe they have to win playoff series, which is with their smarts.
You get the week off, right?
You get the week off where you rest your bodies and you also prep. Let's say you squeak in the playoffs as the 8 seed, you're going to win that game on Friday night, and then you're going to be in Oklahoma City like Sunday afternoon, game 1.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want that. Now, who do they want to play? My educated opinion would be the Rockets.
Okay, fair.
And I believe the Rockets are in the 2. I mean, I know it's all kind of jumbled up now.
Yeah, they're safely in the 2 seed right now, but yeah.
So honestly, I could hear the argument that it's threading the needle, but the best path for them might be sitting in the 7-8, getting a home play-in game on like a Tuesday night, winning that and sitting in the 7.
Right.
You're out of the Thunder's side of the bracket, and you're facing what I think is more appealing opponent than the Lakers or the Nuggets.
Yeah.
But again, that puts you in danger in that 7-8 game.
Right.
Losing that, and then your season's on the line, then you're playing the Thunder even if you win it. So it's tricky. I mean, I know what they're going to do is they're just going to try to win as many of the next 10 games as possible, avoid the play-in and play whoever they play.
Yeah.
But I do think the Rockets would be the most likely that they could take down in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to that point of gamesmanship also from kind of like maneuvering in the standings and whatnot. I wanted to bring up the piece you had on Jimmy Butler, a full sit-down piece with Jimmy on basically everything that's happened with the Miami Heat breakup and kind of looking forward in the future with Golden State. If you haven't read it, by the way, go out and check out this article. It was incredible. In the piece, though, it felt like there was a massive level of confidence from Mike Dunleavy, vouching for Jimmy and his situation and kind of letting him be Jimmy. I think mostly all of the Warriors are kind of letting Jimmy be Jimmy. It feels like the Warriors have that as a specialty, letting stars just be themselves. Is that part of the equation in looking long term at keeping this guy around for the foreseeable future, however long it is?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the name Mike Dunleavy, and where he's really important here is he was the only person in this situation who knew both sides.
Yeah.
He knows the Warriors. He's been, in their front office for a handful of years now. Obviously, he's been at the head of it now for 2 seasons. He knows how Steve Kerr operates. He knows the type of environment that Steph Curry has cultivated that allows stars to walk in and feel comfortable. But he also knows Jimmy Butler. He played with Jimmy Butler for 3 years. I've talked to Jimmy about Mike and how much he loves Mike for a few reasons. But number one, Mike was there when Jimmy Butler, prior to his star turn, and Mike was adamant to Jimmy Butler that he saw it in him. And Mike also, as I put it in the story, saw Jimmy Butler turn down Chicago's 4-year, $44 million rookie extension.
Right.
Basically tell the Bulls, like, no, I'm going to go, outplay it. And then by November, December of that season, he was like guaranteed max.
Right.
And just, Mike is sitting there jaw dropped, like, about Jimmy. And he, while I think even Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, they're reading everything that's going on in Miami. Obviously, Steve's very friendly with Eric Spoelstra, who he coached with. There was reservations from that side of the franchise. And I think clearly there was reservations around the league from people who didn't know Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
And Mike, brought this trade together and kind of got it across the finish line because, he had confidence that what's happening right now would happen, where what Jimmy needs at this point of his career, knowing him, is what the Warriors environment could provide. He made sure ownership greenlit the contract extension, which is, how do you get a motivated Jimmy Butler? How do you get a happy Jimmy Butler? You show him you value him. You give him the financial, backing he wants, but also just like the statement of the contract and the trade. And then the other thing to kind of wrap up, what we're talking about here is this idea of a Jimmy Butler honeymoon. And, they're being warned by people across the league at all the various stops about this expiration date. It's like, wait a couple years from now, they're like, that's all they got anyways. Right. They lined up the contract. Yeah. Steph Curry was 37, Draymond 35, Jimmy 35. They're all expiring after, 2.5 seasons from now, basically 2 at this point. That's going to give them 2 to 3 playoff runs. And if it just goes up in flames, it's burning something down that it's inevitably ending regardless.
Right.
Like they kind of just think there's a massive rebuild. Like they're going to fall off the cliff soon. So they're like, whatever. Like, let's have a fun honeymoon for a marriage that's ending regardless.
Well, look, the marriage has worked so far. They're 16-5, one of the best defenses since Jimmy joined. Go and read Anthony Slater at The Athletic, one of the best in the business. Also, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review whenever you stream this podcast. Thank you for listening to The Athletic NBA Daily. For Anthony Slater, Andrew Schlecht, and myself, thank you for waking up with us.